Hello everyone, my name is Жанна Бугибаевна and welcome to my course. So today's theme is types of pronouns, especially relative pronouns. First of all, let's talk about what are pronouns, the definition of pronoun. So pronouns are the words that replace nouns in a sentence to avoid repetition of nouns in a sentence. So look at these sentences. Rita is a good girl. Rita is very intelligent. So in this first line, Rita is repeated, yeah? Rita is a good girl and Rita is very intelligent. In the second line, you see, Rita is a good girl. She is very intelligent. So what is the difference between the first line and the second line? Yes, in the second line, we use here pronoun instead of noun. So it means instead of Rita, we use she in order not to repeat the words Rita. Rita is a good girl. She is very intelligent. So this she is pronoun. Here are the types of pronouns. So we have 7 types of pronouns: personal, possessive, demonstrative, reflexive, interrogative, relative, indefinite. So especially we're going to talk about today relative pronouns. So what are the relative pronouns? So it is used after a noun to make it clear which person or thing we are talking about. The information that follows the pronoun is contained in what we call a relative clause. There is often some confusion about which word to use in different situations. For example, the man who lent me the book, the man which I borrowed, the library where we met. So who, which, where, the words that are underlined are the relative pronouns. So which relative pronoun must we use? Firstly, for people, we use who, that, whose, whom. For example, the man who or that lent me the book, or the man whose book I borrowed. The relative pronoun whom is common in formal styles. The man from whom I borrowed the book. This sentence is very formal. It becomes less formal if you put the preposition at the end. For example, the man whom I borrowed the book from. It is less formal than the first sentence. So underlined word, it is a preposition. Sorry. In modern and spoken English, it is best to use who instead and put the preposition at the end. The example is the man who I borrowed the book from. You see here informal. It's very informal than these 2 sentences. Secondly, for objects, we use which, that, whose. For example, the book which or that I borrowed, or the book which that is entitled Peace. So there is a note. You can also say the book, the title of which is Peace, or the book of which the title is Peace. In this case, the noun is always preceded by the definite article the. So here is the underlined definite article the. Just a minute. So thirdly, for places, times, and reason, we use where, when, why, that. In informal English, you can use these as relative pronouns. In formal English, use which with a preposition. Here is examples. Let's read together. The library where we met. This situation is informal. The library at which we met. It is formal. The day which or that we met. Informal. The day on which we met is formal. The reason why or that I was at the library. Informal. The reason for which I was at the library. Formal. So next thing is, can we drop the relative pronoun or not? So in formal written English, it is best not to drop it. In informal and spoken English, it's common to drop it, but it's not always possible. You can drop who, whom, that, and which if the information is related to the object of the sentence, but not when it is related to the subject. The man who or that lent me the book. The book which or that is called peace. But we can drop in these sentences the man I borrowed the book from. Or we can say the book I borrowed. Note, you cannot drop whom when it is next to the preposition. For example, the man from whom I borrowed the book. So here, underline the word preposition. If it is next to the preposition, we cannot drop the relative pronoun whom. Okay? So you cannot drop whose or which or where. For example, the man whose book I borrowed. The book, the title of which is Peace. The library where I met. Here we cannot drop. You can drop when and why in the same way you can drop that. The day when or that I met him. The day I met him. Or the reason why or that I was at the library. Or you may say like this, the reason I was at the library. So in this case, we can drop the relative pronoun when and why, like when and why. In this case, whose, which, where, we cannot drop the relative pronouns. Okay? The next thing. So what about the words what and how? So what and how are not relative pronouns because they cannot come after a noun. They replace a noun and a relative pronoun. What is equal to the thing which? What I read in the book surprised me. How, it is equal to the manner in which. I still remember how we met. Where did I stop? So also, the notion is non-defining relative clause. So what is it? Let's read together. A non-defining relative clause gives additional information about the person or thing. If we eliminate this information from the sentence, the listener still knows who or what we are talking about. In written English, there is always a comma before non-defining relative clause. For example, the man who lent me the book was the author himself, who you may have heard of. It is equal to the sentence, the man who lent me the book was the author himself. The book which I borrowed, which you may have read, is entitled Peace. The book which I borrowed is entitled Peace. It means that this sentence with this one are the equal, and this one to this second. The book which I borrowed is entitled Peace. The library where we met, where I always borrow books, is the largest city. It is equal to the library where we met is the largest in the city. Note, you cannot use that instead of who or which in non-defining clauses. The man who that lent me the book was the author himself, who you may have heard of. The book which or that I borrowed, which you may have read, is entitled Peace. So here we cannot use that instead of which. Note, sometimes which gives additional information about the whole sentence instead of just the noun in the sentence. For example, the man who or that lent me the book was the author himself, which was totally amazing. So here, 10 sentences you have to complete with the following and an appropriate word. If the words can be dropped, put on brackets. So here is the exercise for you to do it. I'll give you 5 minutes. You can send me by an email when you have done. Thank you for your attention. See you next week.